Hey guys, it's Sam Optenboss, owner of Sam's Cookie Company. My husband created a little add-in for Fusion 360 to make the process of creating a cookie cutter easier and faster. Before I was using Silhouette, then Tinkercad, then going to Kyra, and that process was a little bit cumbersome, so I'm really hoping that you guys are going to like this tutorial. It's all about creating a cookie cutter with my husband's Fusion 360 add-in. It's going to be a super fun experience for you and for me. I think you're going to be really surprised at how fast this process is. So thanks for joining me. So before we get started, I think the first thing that I'm going to do for myself is I'm going to go ahead and change from millimeters to inches. So the first thing you're going to do is use this little drop down called Document Settings. Then you're going to click on this little notepad right here to change active units. Then we're going to go over to the right, use the drop down, and go ahead and select inch. This is helpful for me because I usually buy my cookie cutters by the inch, so I'll pick a mini, which is pretty small, probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches, then a regular, which is around 3 inches, then a large, 3.5 inches, and then jumbo, I would say, is around 4. But I'm used to that measurement, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and use for myself. So to use our add-in, you're going to need just one profile. This heart that I have here, this is one profile. A profile would be considered a closed 2D outline made of 2D entities like lines, splines, and arches. If you need help creating a heart like this, we're going to come out with more tutorials, but for now, we're going to use this heart. So this is my one profile. We've made a few upgrades to our profile or to our add-in, and now you can keep multiple profiles within the same sketch. So I could have a star over here, I could have another heart of a different shape, and what you'd want to do is they would all be on this one sketch. But whenever you're creating your cookie cutter, you would highlight only one of those profiles, and then when you've got these multiple profiles out here, you want to make sure they're at least 1 inch apart. So we're super excited that this latest version of our add-in is available in both PC and Mac. I think that's pretty awesome. A lot of people are on Macs these days, so we wanted to make sure that we could support everyone. So the gingerbread man right here is what we're going to use to make our cookie cutter. So let's talk about a few of these upgrades. The first one that you see here is called Mirror Profile. If I check that, what's going to happen is going to flip my cookie cutter. And that's really important, especially if you're doing words like the word hello. You would want to make sure that it's being read from left to right so it looks like hello and not backward. Your cookie cutter that you're creating is going to be from the bottom up. So we're actually looking at the bottom of the cookie cutter. So if it's a word, remember that you need to go ahead and flip that profile. This is a heart, so we don't need to do that. So I'm going to uncheck Mirror Profile. The next thing we're going to talk about is cutter width and height. I'm going to go ahead and select my heart. The first thing that we need to talk about is the lead dimension. So right here you can see that my width is a little bit longer than my height. So we're going to consider the width the lead dimension. So see how it's 4.985 and the cutter height is 4.074. As I adjust the width, it's going to proportionally adjust the cutter height. The adjustment is going to go from 1 to 7 on the cutter width, which is our lead dimension. You can see here the numbers are a little bit different here because it is proportional, as I mentioned. So I like to use a 3.5 inch cookie cutter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and then I'm going to go ahead and backspace to 3.5. So let's talk about these dimensions here. These are the dimensions that are going to be for our cookie cutter. And what you see up here is the cross section of that cookie cutter. The first dimension that you see here is 6 millimeters. This is called the cutting edge depth. This is what's going to cut your actual dough. The great thing is it doesn't really matter the thickness of your dough. The left side that you see here is what's actually going to be cutting the dough. The cutting edge depth is at 6 millimeters. It can go from 1 millimeter all the way to 6 millimeters. The cutter depth that you see here is currently at 23. That's going to be the overall height of our cookie cutter itself. It can go from 14 millimeters to 23 millimeters. And our cutter handle size right now is 8 millimeters. That's this area right here. It's actually the same height and depth. Those two dimensions are the same. We've made a nice rounded edge here. This is going to be what you're going to hold on to when you're using your cookie cutter. Right now it's at 8, but you can go from 5 millimeters all the way to 8 millimeters. The last parameter that you see right here is called Launch 3D Print. What I want to point out is that it is exactly the same as this menu that you see here where it says 3D Print. Those two items are exactly the same. We just thought we'd make it easier by putting it in this dialog box right here. So now that we have everything the way that we want it and we have our sketch selected, we're going to go ahead and hit OK. If for some reason your OK is not enabled, it means that your actual sketch has not been selected. So you want to make sure that it says 1 selected. So now we're going to hit OK. It's created our cookie cutter. Take a look at it. So because we checked the 3D print dialog box, we've got this dialog right here. If you didn't check it, you would just need to go over here to File and hit 3D print and you would be in the same situation. So I'm going to go ahead and select my cookie cutter that I just created. And now what I'm going to do is hit OK. But before I do that, you see where it says Kyra here? We've already set it up to use Kyra as our slicer. If you don't have anything written here, you would just want to follow the process right here to go ahead and add your slicer. It doesn't have to be Kyra. So now that I have Kyra ready to go, I've got my 3D cookie cutter selected. I'm going to hit OK. So now it's going to bring up Kyra because that's what we asked it to do. So Kyra is now up and we can see our cookie cutter. Looks pretty good. Now what we're using here is the standard Kyra profile, but you can make whatever adjustments that you want or use your own profile. This is just easier for us and we like it, so that's what we're going to use. And then we're going to go ahead and slice it. Looks like it's going to take about 1 hour and 57 minutes. And here's the preview. So all I need to do now is save it to my USB stick and put it in my 3D printer. Title it whatever you want to title it. And we're good to go. So let's go back to Fusion 360 to talk about a few things. So what you see here is the cookie cutter that we created. If you use the drop down, you're going to see Body 1. Body 1 is where the cookie cutter is located. I'm going to turn that off for now. And I'm going to go back to Sketch 1 and turn it on. So this was our original sketch. It's been completely preserved. If you wanted to create another cookie cutter, you would just select it, go back to the gingerbread man, change the size or whatever parameter you wanted to change, and go through that same process again. The other thing you need to know is that Body 1, which was our cookie cutter, and Sketch 2 are basically connected. If I turn off my Sketch 1, which was my original sketch, and I turn on Sketch 2, you're going to see all of the geometry that's associated with the cookie cutter that we created. Fusion 360 allows you to adjust a lot of different parameters here, and we're going to release new tutorials to sort of go through that. But I wanted you to know why there was a Sketch 2 there. Body 1 and Sketch 2 are going to be the same. The Sketch 2 is the geometry for the cookie cutter that we created, which was Body 1. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my cookie cutter, which was Body 1, and I'm going to turn off Sketch 2 so you can see it. So there's our cookie cutter. we've sort of gone through the entire process from start to finish. I just wanted you guys to know that we're going to be releasing new profiles and new tutorials, so make sure you keep watching. Thank you so much.